Hey, what's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? Hey, welcome to Jay's Take Radio Sports Talk number 4. Um, just a heads up before I get started today. Uh, I will be kind of changing up the schedule just a little bit. So, like, as far as um, as far as the schedule for the next upcoming weeks are concerned, next Saturday, um, I'm gonna just kind of be doing a feel free to call in show. I'll kind of overview a couple of things. Um, won't be anything too extravagant. Probably try to just do 2 hours. Um, and then the week of the new year, once again, it'll probably just be one show. The week after that will be one show. But by that time, I'm hoping to actually have not only my site ready, but my new YouTube channel ready. I got some cats working on some really, really cool designs. I will try to drop links in. As far as the Blog Talk Radio, I'm going to try to drop links in the info so you guys have that. And then as far as the chat line, I'm definitely going to be trying to drop the links in there today. Or sorry, not today, but sometime next week, sometime after Christmas there, because hopefully I'll have all that stuff ready to go. Now, um, today I'm actually going to start with a little bit of NBA news. So, interestingly enough, um, there has been some there has been some really interesting things coming out of the NBA off season. It's like a week and a half of an off season. They actually go back to kind of a shortened regular season starting next week. Um, it's weird because this time they're not actually in the bubble. The teams are actually playing from like their actual like home arenas and traveling and stuff like that. And it, just as weird as it has been to like see like mostly empty NFL crowds, um, or just empty NFL crowds in general. For basketball, it's very, very odd because usually they're in full swing, and those arenas get pretty full, especially during the week because not a lot of football, and usually college football is in its playoffs area, the bowls and all that, which have kind of basically been put to the side for this year. Something else that's been odd, but 2020 has not been a normal year. We'll see what 2021 brings. Um, with that said, the big one that I wanted to get to today was the Lakers preseason game against uh, the ah, I couldn't even remember. They play the Suns tonight, but they look good. They look really good. Um, they basically look like the team that's going to repeat. We're going to see what happens. It'll be really interesting to see what happens. And it was so funny because I'm watching the team, and yeah, it's Braun, it's AD most of the way there with the Lakers. But when you're looking at it, they're better on the bench this year, man. Like the Lakers are actually better on the bench this year. They're deeper on the bench, and that's crazy to think because they don't have Rondo. Playoff Rondo, we'll see how that works for them this year. Because playoff Rondo is still, he basically kind of goes back into like all pro, all star, championship caliber Rajon Rondo. And Schroeder, Denise Schroeder is he's a nice player. I don't know what planet he's living on where he thinks that um, where he thinks for some reason he's going to be their starting point guard, whatever. But yeah, the bench is much deeper this year. I see a lot of regular season games where maybe AD is playing more minutes than LeBron because the team is just deeper. The team is better. Um, their first regular season game is against those Clippers. Those those very, very sad, choking Paul George and Kawhi Leonard led Los Angeles Clippers, who technically share a building with with the Lakers. They literally just share a building with the Lakers. Um, it's I actually think this year the Clippers have less of a chance after. I don't know. I just get a feeling after watching just the one preseason game when it comes to the Lakers. They're deeper. They're better this year. I'm actually in the live stream. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drop the call-in number for the radio show. So feel free to go ahead and call in if you like. I will be taking callers today. Show will be about an hour and a half, so feel free to drop on in. But yeah, after watching that, man, like it's kind of crazy. Like, I don't see how they don't repeat barring catastrophic injury. I don't see how they don't get it done again. Also, Timberwolves looked real good. Looked real good. A lot of those young players coming along, and it's about time. I think Timberwolves fans have suffered enough. It'd be nice if that team came along, but really the big thing for that team is just a vie for a playoff spot. Remember, they haven't been in the playoffs for a couple years uh, since they had Jimmy Butler and Karl Anthony Towns and the kid that they shipped off to Phoenix. Basically, I really Andrew Wiggins. I really do hope for the Timberwolves that this is the year they can kind of put it together. They're not just leaving Karl Anthony Towns hanging, because they should be a better team than what they have been. So I'm actually very, very interested to see how this season plays out for them. Another NBA news: Giannis got that money, baby. Giannis got that big, big money. Now, to be honest, I was actually surprised at this, um, because I wasn't sure he wanted to stay if the team. Now, don't get me wrong. 40. What is it? I think it's an average of 45 million a year for him with this new 7-year extension. Um, it's pretty difficult to turn down. I mean, he's got some deals in place, and the last year of his contract was pretty decently lucrative as well. But that max deal of his, he's deserving, and really in his case, it's the player he's going to be. He's already one of the best 4 players in the game, top 5 for sure. But I think a lot for him will be the projection of the next few years. They lost some key players in the offseason. Now they did try to, they did load up on a couple of really good defenders. They did load up on a couple of good 3-point shooters. I just don't know if that'll be enough for them to get over the hump and really to get out of the East. Boston's going to still be really, really good. We'll see what happens with Philly. Toronto is no joke. It's no joke. Kyle Lowry and those guys just compete hard and are a championship caliber team even without Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi just helped put them over the top, but that team is still very, very capable without Kawhi of getting back there. So the East is even tough for Orlando, who has made the playoffs the last couple of years. People, this is a good young ball team. I'm not going to talk about my Knicks. They're not even in the conversation. But like I said, Philly is a team that kind of goes up. The Miami Heat, who were in the finals last year, they only got better, so you can't say that they ain't gonna make it back. Um, so yeah, the Bucks are in an interesting situation. They needed to keep him because he is a cornerstone player, and they needed to make that work. Like, no doubt about it, they needed to make that work. Um, I'm really, really excited to see. Now the Lakers play the Suns tonight. I'm actually excited to actually watch that ball game because I want to see if they actually play LeBron a little bit more. Um, I'm sure Devin Booker will at least play a half. I'm sure Chris will at least play a half, as far as minutes are concerned. So it'll be an interesting matchup. Suns are an interesting young team. They're just undisciplined. I mean, Booker, I love Booker. He's still one of my favorite players in the game right now, but we'll see what happens. So NBA offseason so far, really, really interesting. Also in the news, James Harden possibly getting traded. Bro. So when they traded Russell Westbrook, I wasn't shocked. Um, it didn't work out, and it's hard to believe that it was going to work out. It was just really difficult to believe that it was going to work out long term down there in Houston. Between the usage rates, those guys are just they're high usage rate players, James Harden and Russell Westbrook. And him going to the Wizards, people were like, well, who won the trade? Well, one thing Paul Wall will do is Paul Wall will pass the ball more. Now, Russell Westbrook has more assists, has averaged more assists in his career, but John Wall will actually pass the ball more. So it's going to be interesting to see the Wizards with Russell because does Bradley Beal now become a secondary ancillary player? Um, I mean, he was already kind of second fiddle to John, but he's a guy who could go out and get 30 if he had to for the Wizards to win a game. So, yeah, man, it's going to be really, really interesting to see. Also, the Ball brother out there in Charlotte's going to be really interesting to watch. He actually might be the most talented out of all of them. And I'm not hating on Lonzo. I actually think Lonzo is really coming into his own as a point guard. Um, I think his shot is still a little awful. Now he's been working on it. He's clearly been working on it. New Orleans Pelicans is another team to keep an eye on. They re-signed Brandon Ingram to a long-term deal. Really like that really young nucleus. And the better that Zion gets, the more that team has a chance to come out of the West as well. Like, don't sleep on the Pelicans. But yeah, Angelo Ball up there in Charlotte. It'll be interesting to see if he can turn around their fortunes because Michael Jordan has not drafted well. Michael Jordan and John Elway seem to have that in common in their respective sports. As great of players as they were, these two do not draft well at all. As far as like, in John Elway's case, of course, it's been the quarterback issue. Now, John Elway will have some options in the free agency. We'll get to that when I get to the NFL. But yeah, as far as MJ has not drafted high well at all, which is why Charlotte's been in this limbo since he, took over the team, since he took ownership of the team. So, yeah, I'm interested to see what happens. Um, I, can he bring stability to Charlotte? That's going to be the big thing. I don't see them making a run. I don't see them probably winning even in a shortened season more than 26 games, if that. Uh, Michael still's got a lot of building to do out there in Charlotte, but what I've seen in this summer league, it's not really summer league when it's in freaking October and November, but is that this Ball brother actually has a chance to be really, really special. So, yeah, man. I think the NBA season is going to be wild. I cannot wait for next Tuesday. I'm probably one of the most excited guys you will actually find on YouTube excited Besides my man who's a Detroit Pistons fan, uh, I might have to put his link in here for y'all to check him out. I know he's pretty excited because every other fan I know of with the NBA season is just like the Lakers are going to win again. What does it matter? It's like it does matter. Watch it. Even if the Lakers are the favorites, especially with the injury to Clay in Golden State, the team is good enough, but I still don't think they're deep enough. And I know they try to address the center position, which they've needed to do for a long while here. Because Andrew Bogut might have not been a scorer, but he was a damn good rim defender, and they have not replaced that at all. So, yeah, like I said, next Tuesday, I'm really excited for those first games. So last week in the NFL, we had some really, really interesting things happen. The Steelers losing their second game. What? I told people, man. I told people like this team, the Steelers team, is not Super Bowl caliber. Like they struggle to run the football. Like James Conner is a nice piece, but I told y'all like they this season for sure they were gonna really, really miss try to get Le'Veon Bell back for my Jets. I was shocked they weren't one of the teams that were just like, dude, you're not gonna get a 1 or a 2 for him. Maybe we'll give you a 3 so we can get him back in our offense. Like that's what I thought was gonna happen. That's what I felt was gonna happen, but that's not what happened. He's in Kansas City. I really think the Steelers should have went and got Le'Veon Bell back because their running game has struggled so badly, especially the last 5 weeks, and definitely the last 2 weeks. The cross patterns and the passing game aren't working as well. Linebackers and safeties are starting to sniff that out for them, and the Bills for sure, probably even more so than the Ravens did. The Bills for sure have exposed that passing game. And I mean, they have 2 great safeties, Buffalo. Tre'Davious White's really good. And I do like the kid Lee out of Alabama, but that secondary isn't what they'll face in the playoffs. Like it's a great secondary. The defense is really good in Buffalo. I know I'm a Jet fan. But then again, most defenses look good against us. Adam Gase is the head coach, but I'll get to that in a minute. And once again, they got exposed. I mean, they got completely outplayed, especially in the second half. Ben Roethlisberger is just a statue now. Like he's not as mobile, and his arm is not as strong as it used to be. So if you let him start passing the ball too much, like watch the games, like you can tell the moment he starts passing the ball more than like 30 times, he starts throwing picks again. He starts making really wild decisions with the football, and he puts the ball in harm's way. I told y'all this is not a championship caliber team because of the offense. Now they were always going to have a better record than what they had last year because it's been Roethlisberger, and he alone is good enough to beat some of the lower scale teams they were going to play this year, where Mason Rudolph and hating on Josh Dobbs, but I liked Josh Dobbs coming out of Tennessee, but they're not Big Ben. Even Big Ben on the downside of his career in my eyes. So Steeler fans, I got to tell you, brother, could be one and done in the playoffs. Like I said, I really thought they should have traded for Le'Veon probably by week 4. Got him the hell out of New York and just got him back to Pittsburgh. I know what he did was stupid. I think having to deal with Adam Gase the last couple of years has probably humbled Le'Veon. And there's also a chance he's just strictly not the same player that he used to be. But it would have been interesting for you guys to bring him back. Like, listen, remember the Jets are paying you your salary this year, and then we can cut you. Like we don't have to pay you jack. So welcome back, Le'Veon. but let's try to go get this chip because they're missing a running game. They're definitely missing a wide receiver like Antonio Brown in his prime. Juju's very, very good. Um, Deontay Johnson has something going on in his set the last few weeks, man. This dude cannot hold on to a football to save his life. It's 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 been troubling to watch because he's young. I think he's only a third-year player. He's very, very young. He's capable of doing a lot of really excellent things too. So, but on the other side with the Buffalo Bills, they're a threat, and they're a threat to control the AFC East for years to come. Um, Talk about coaching, what coaching can do for your team. A good head coach and a good GM make sure that when you draft young players, that they've developed. Um, and you can tell the difference between the Jets organization and the Bills organization because the Bills have developed a lot of those young players, including quarterback Josh Allen, who is still an MVP candidate. They improved his passer rating by over 10% within a year, not with just scheme, but with developing his mechanics more and his ability to read a defense. And the fact that his legs are also a weapon, which can also help him read a defense because they're going to come in sometimes and make sure that he doesn't get out and kill them. Well, remember, you talking about the dude with the strongest arm in the NFL for sure for now, outside of Patrick Mahomes. Those two have the strongest arms in the NFL. They got cannons. And now he's even more accurate than he was. 67% passing. Like, like they're a force to be reckoned with, man. They're an absolute force to be reckoned with. And they actually ran away with the division, and I didn't actually think they would. I mean, the Dolphins are still definitely competing in the division, but my goodness, man, I did not expect that. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take a caller here. Caller, you're on. Go ahead. How's it going, man? How you doing today?
All right. Yeah, I've been trying to get a hold of you the last couple of weeks, but last week it didn't go through, and well, Saturday was no offense, but you were doing wrestling, and I haven't followed wrestling since much since I was young. Since I was young, I'm pretty old.
No worries, man. Yeah, thank you for calling into the show. What's on your mind, brother?
Yeah, it's a big week in sports. College football's got their championship games.
Yep.
We're coming down to the end of the regular season of football.
Yes, sir.
Which has been rather weird.
Very odd, especially not really having the bowl games or anything of that nature. Yeah, it's been very odd.
Well, hold on a second. That's a fact because it's mostly the minor bowl games that nobody really cares about. That's not going to be done. I mean, nobody really cares about the Lysol bowl or the bowl. I mean, they don't really care about that. I mean, if you take away the rose cosmic sugar, yeah, then you're gonna hear from me. But the minor league stuff, the second tier games, nobody really even cares to notice.
Yeah, true. That's very true. But I just mean like even just the cross playing as well. The playing between the conferences. It's been so odd to not even have that this year. You know what I mean?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen anything like this. Well, the only time I think that really was a bad effect was probably the '82 strike with the NFL. And
Yeah.
The '94 strike in baseball, which of course.
Yeah, that was ugly. I was a kid back then. I remember that.
So was I. Well, '82, yeah, 24 was full grown. But we can't really blame it. We can't really blame anything on this because this was not anybody's fault.
Yeah.
Anybody struck and said, "Oh, we're gonna walk out, whatnot." No, this was just an unfortunate incident that had to happen. Well, it didn't have to happen, but it happened, and it hurt us.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, what's even crazier is because when it comes to college football, you're watching the power conferences, you're still watching Clemson and Ohio State and these ball clubs, and you're going, yeah, but I don't know what they really are, because some of.
That reminds me, because I was reading an article yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I was writing down an article from yesterday because, well, actually, I read about 80 articles in about a week. It was about with the it was about with the commissioner of the ACC. He said he wants the BCS back because he doesn't really agree with this system that's currently happening right now. Oh, what a shock! Nobody agrees for the college football system. Oh, what a surprise! I mean, first you have the computer rankings with that, and then they went to this BCS bowl,
Mm-hmm.
which some ranked and some didn't.
Yeah.
And now you have this system because I think he makes a point. Because how do you figure a team that has no losses
Mm-hmm.
and is ranked lower than three teams who are in the top 10 won 2 losses?
Yeah, no, I've always had a problem with the BCS rankings, because they also value other conferences more than others. You know what I mean? Like they value the SEC so much higher than other conferences. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's shortchanging, a team that should deserve to be in there, but you got to, it's not a big conference, doesn't really matter. I don't want to. I think it does matter because,
Yeah.
you're really shortchanging a team that has, great potential, but like, no, that's not how they roll. Well, maybe it's not how you did.
Right, like, yeah, like, no, and I agree. Like, how does it, if a team only has one loss, even though their conference is weaker, how do they get a lesser ranking than a team who might be in a stronger conference, but they have 3 losses on the year? Like, wait a minute, how does that work? Like, yeah, it's the BCS has always been kind of a mess.
Yeah, so let me see here because I wrote this article yesterday. It was after, Oregon Ducks approved new 6-year for a coach. If he's highly deserving of it, give him what he's due.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
But you don't shortchange somebody who is deserving, and no, it doesn't fit the system. Yeah, I like to give you a system. ACC Conference Commissioner Michael Arsico criticized the College Football Selection Committee for dropping the Bearcats another spot in the rankings between 3 teams with 2 losses. I think he has a very good argument here.
Yeah, you know what? I didn't actually get the chance to hear his argument. What was his argument on that? Because I remember seeing it, but I didn't get the chance to read what he had said about why that happened.
Cincinnati is dropped to 9th in the conference.
Yeah.
In the bowl rankings, while 3 teams with 2 losses or 6, 7, 2 losses are still in the top 10.
Yeah.
They're probably not going to be in the big bowl games, but still, that is ridiculous.
Yeah, no, amen. Yeah, I didn't when I saw it, I'm like, well, I don't understand. Like, and I get that they probably shouldn't have lost because that was back in October. But I'm just saying, I don't know how that the loss back, because I think that was late October. I'm like, I don't know how that hurts them that badly, like especially this year. It's like especially this year where they weren't, most of all these teams are playing mostly in conference games. You know what I mean? So like, how do you then kind of, how do you how do you hurt them that bad? It's I don't know. Like I said, I didn't get the chance to read his thing about that. Go ahead.
I was what they're basing these rankings on because somebody's system is wrong here. I mean, it was confusing enough the old way when the AP had said one thing and the coaches poll says something else. Well, I don't go by the coaches poll anyway. I go by the AP poll, which they've always had. That's the official poll.
Yeah.
The coaches poll is just a matter of opinion.
Yeah.
That's by the media. And the media always says one thing. Sports Illustrated can say one thing, Sporting News can say another. So it really depends on who you believe.
I've always thought, well, first off, I'm with you. The AP poll to me has always been the official poll. But what I also have always liked about the AP poll is they also go upon strength of opponent. And to me, that's huge. Now this year, it's hard to do that because it's mostly in conference. I mean, you know the bad teams in the conferences, but because it's mostly in conference and most of these teams did not get the chance to do a lot of the interconference play. Well, how do you know how much they really stack up? Plus, a lot of these teams had a lot of players who opted out. So, for me this year, it was going to be really hard to kind of go about the championship rankings.
The other thing too is, I think sometimes the rankings this year, I think we're looking off because some of the teams are ranked, before they even play the game this year. Like in the Big 12 and the Big 10.
Yeah.
They're ranked before they even play a game yet.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wasn't, I usually do pay attention to the rankings, but this year there's a kind of do so because some teams played like 9 or 10 games, others only played 5 or 6. Ohio State had to cancel a game. So
yeah, I was gonna say the Big Ten didn't even get started till what, like late October, October 20th, I think, or something like that. Yeah. So like, it's just I get why they still kept Ohio State up there. But when a couple of those conferences started later, I was just like, I don't know how you do that to teams who have been who actually did play sort of on time, compared to the conferences that decided to start later. Like I don't know. I felt like it was never going to be fair this year, and plus, I always felt like, well, as long as Clemson doesn't lose a game, they're just going to have them number one anyway. But of course, they did lose. But yeah, I always felt the rankings this year were going to be unfair. Go ahead.
I have the show right now where they have where the article came from. On the are you familiar with the SEC network?
Yeah, you know what though? To be honest, I have not watched my subscription to it for a couple of months though.
Well, this came from the show that's currently on right now, the Paul Feinbaum show.
Oh, Paul Feinbaum, great journalist, man. Great journalist. Great insight from him.
Yeah, Marcus Day for Mel Kiper with ESPN. That's another story that guy bugs the bejesus out.
Yeah.
Oh, you and I agree.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we agree. Well, his knowledge is vast, but it just comes off so swarmy and like, I don't even like listening to him for more than like a minute and a half about his analysis. So it bugs it bugs the heck out of me too.
That's funny. That's what they say about me.
Yeah, no, the college football season is, and I've gotten the chance to watch a lot of the games. I just haven't followed. Like, I have a subscription to the ACC network and those other deals. I just haven't watched them as much because, usually in the past I've loved to kind of get the analysis, especially when they go interconference, because that's when you can really tell if you're the cream of the crop. But because like we've already talked about, the Big Ten, the Pac-10, like these they started so late that and they didn't do interconference play that it's actually hard to rank these teams, and including the fact that a lot of these players opted out to come back, either to come back next year or to go straight to the draft. So yeah, they're putting a lot of stuff on film, and for the players it was good because they're putting stuff on film for the draft. But I'm just like, I don't know how you rank them to see who were some of the actual best teams football this year. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, what would you do?
see, and that's a tough thing because a part of me still thought that if you are still willing to do conference play, then interconference play shouldn't be that bad because the teams they still have to travel, they still have to do their COVID testing when they travel. Um, so if the players understand that, um, plus with college football, of course, coaches and administrations have a bit more power under what of what they do, but but yeah, like because you have more of that power, why not still do the interconference play? Now, some of the conferences like the Big Ten and the Pac-10, at first weren't going to play at all, and I kind of understood where they were coming from. They were trying to be safer, but I was like, you know what? If everyone can agree, one thing I gave the NBA a lot of credit for early on, especially when they came back, was if you can agree to make sure that you're holding yourself accountable and doing what you have to do so you can continue to play, then you shouldn't run into too many problems. I know the NHL actually did a good job as far as closing their playoffs of it, and so did the NBA. The NFL has kind of had some issues, but I had a feeling they were the young players, especially the third years. They weren't going to make good decisions, but um, in college football, the coaches and administrations have more control. So to me, I would at least talk to the parents and be like, listen, we do have a bit more control over your children to make sure that they're doing the right things if we play this year. It's just you guys can't come to the games. And I think that actually would have worked very, very well. But of course, the conferences also have their own conference power.
Forfeit the game. We're gonna forfeit the bowl game. Oh boy.
Yeah, and it just and that never made sense to me because I'm like, well, you're also not helping the kids when you do that. Like, they're still kids basically. These are 17 to 22-year-old men. They're still kids. Like, you're hurting them when you don't give them a chance to go play because a lot of them want to put something off them and maybe try to go to the next, and you're hurting business. So like, yeah, it was always a tough situation to be in, but I always thought if I'm like, well, if the NFL don't take the example always, but if they can at least give it a shot, since you guys have more control over the kids, you should be able to give it a shot with all the conferences playing at the same time, still trying interconference play. Because like you're gonna test those kids rigorously. You're gonna try to keep an eye on them, and like I said, you have more control over them as far as what they can do. You can put curfews on them. You can just suspend them. If they've been caught doing something they're not supposed to do because you have full control over them. Unlike when they become pros. So yeah, I like I said, I always thought it was a tough situation. Plus the fact that all the conferences have their own autonomy. It was always going to be tough, which is why like Notre Dame ended up playing in the ACC this year. I think it was the ACC this year, because the rest of the other independent teams didn't want to play. So I'm like, it's a tough spot to be put in. It really is. Well, first off, man, I'm sorry. Say what you were saying.
We knew that there were problems that were going to occur, once the fall season is going to arrive, with, everything getting colder and everything, and kids would spike up. So,
Yeah.
Prepared for this, but I don't think a lot of others were.
True, and there was a lot of fear because there was a lot of unknown information out there. Um,
Right?
but I've always said a big thing of especially when you kind of have overall autonomy of being able to oversee the situation. Yes, not everyone can do what the NHL and NBA did, where they can do a bubble. It's very, very hard to do if you're non-arena football. I was trying to explain to a buddy before fall sports started that these non-arena things like college and NFL football and soccer were going to have issues because they don't actually have anything where they can do like a huge bubble deal. Now MLS was able to get it done, but what most of the other sports were not going to be able to do that outside of basketball because you can control the situation because one, the teams aren't as large. In the NFL, it's at least 60 active players. In college football, it's closer to 70, even though 53 suit up, they at least bring 70 kids with them. And that's not even including staff and stuff. So yeah, it was going to be a lot tougher to do, but incredibly doable if you start to try to make the plans ahead of time. I also thought one thing I was actually kind of mad with the Pac-10 about was that and I understood where they were coming from, but they never had a plan for when the state of California decided that they didn't actually they didn't want sports to happen, and they never put a plan in place, which was a horrible idea. they call me low intelligence, but yeah, they never put a plan in place. So when you don't put a plan in place, you suffer those consequences when a state decides to do that. The NFL always had a plan to move, San Francisco, and the two LA teams. If they had to move them to Arizona or Vegas, I know they had talked about Oregon using the Duck Stadium. I know there was an article out there that they were talking to the college about. Like, if they had to do that, at least there was a plan in place for them to do that if the state of California shut down. But college football, that's another reason I've always thought that they should pay the kids, because you make all this money off of them and you don't really think about their well-being as much as they should. You should probably just pay them to make sure that they're taken care of.
How much do you think they can pay them?
Well, I would say I've always thought definitely a smaller pie than the NFL. Definitely much smaller than the NFL, because yes, they are getting free schooling. Don't get me wrong, that's huge, and I do like that they do that basically for those athletes. But I don't think there's anything wrong with, depending on the state or whatever. I'll say 24 to 2,800 a month. I don't think that's too bad while they're playing, but only while they're playing, because they're really only in school while they're playing. I think I've read that a lot of those guys, including when they're freshmen, they're in school usually only up until March, and then they usually start their classes again in August. But of course, usually camp for college football starts in July, late June. So yeah, I would only pay them while the season was going, but I would make sure that they got paid at least a little bit of the pie.
Well, don't forget, because something happens, because college baseball goes to the end of June, so you factor in that.
Yeah.
In this part of the country, we don't care.
Because I know, they basically restrict them on working. They basically restrict them on getting any kind of income at all while they are full-time student athletes, especially in the bigger conferences. So it's, like I said, it's one of those things. If you can kind of figure out where to pay them, and yeah, that goes for the other sports too. I wouldn't mind it. They're usually the biggest money makers for those colleges, besides the high tuitions. They're usually the biggest money makers for those colleges anyway, are all the sports teams. So yeah, that's why I've always been on the side of finding the way to make sure that they get a small piece of the. Because to me, if you can pay a college coach $14 million, you can give the kids at least $2,400 a month or something close to that nature. 2,000, depending on the state, of course, but something.
Well, when you look at
I'm in a northern state up here in Minnesota, so yeah, maybe the pay would be lower, maybe it'd be 15, 16, but you got to give them something, right? something. But I had, this year I had not paid attention to them as much. Not because I didn't want to, but because before COVID, I was actually hopeful for the Golden Gophers that they would get a chance because I like the young freshman quarterback that they got out of. I think he's out of Texas. I'm gonna have to look that up again. And then of course, also the young wide receiver actually sat after Tyler Johnson went to the NFL last year. I was actually interested to see what the team looked like, and then when COVID started, I'm like, well, it doesn't matter. They're not going to get their shot, even if they go undefeated. They're not going to get a shot at the national championship probably. Where last year they beat all these power teams. They were so good, especially on defense. Even though most of those starters are sophomores, they were sophomores last year. So, and I think a lot of them opted back in to come back for their senior year. But yeah, I actually haven't watched them as much because I already knew, like, unless they go undefeated, because I don't think they were. They didn't play Ohio State this year. I don't think they played Ohio State this year. And Michigan, a win over Michigan means nothing anymore because Jim Harbaugh can't ever beat Ohio State, so it doesn't even mean anything anymore. He's half and half when it comes to beating Michigan State. So like, I'm a big proponent of Jim just going back to the NFL. I think he should go back to the NFL where he was incredibly successful. Because this run with Michigan, it would be hard for him to get another college football head coaching job again. Because for most, they would look and go, well, you can't beat the big team in your conference. How can I, like, if I'm an ACC team, how can I bring you on, but I know you can't beat Clemson? If I'm in the Pac-10, how can I bring you on, but I know you can't beat Oregon? Well, even though he was successful in the Pac-10, don't get me wrong, but those guys didn't get to a national championship with Jim Harbaugh. They got close when when Jim left and they had David as the head coach. So I always think that he should go right back to the NFL where he was really a overthrow away from winning a Super Bowl against his brother, nonetheless. Yeah, because I'm like I wouldn't be shocked if Michigan fired him. I wouldn't even be shocked if Michigan fired him. I don't think they will because he's such a big name, but I would think they would try to see if they want to find someone because he barely can beat Michigan State ever. He struggled against other power conference teams, and then he can't beat Ohio State for anything. So, and then he also another thing that's been against him at Michigan, he has not been able to recruit quarterbacks. Like where he succeeded in the NFL so well and at Stanford, he has failed horribly at Michigan at like Shea Patterson, Denard Robinson was basically a wide receiver playing quarterback. So like, yeah, it's interesting to me. I think they should. I don't know. I think if I were him, I would consider just going back to the NFL because it's not worked out at Michigan at all. Well, before I let you go, first off, thank you for calling in. Where can let people know where they can find your stuff. I would love to read your stuff. Okay. Okay.
Gmail account too at boost45@capitalgmail.com. You find on Facebook, just look for my name, Luke North, about Facebook, you'll find me there. And like I said, you can reach me at the number to call for tomorrow's show is 512-543-4662. And that's 5 to 7 East Coast time.
All right, I'm recording all that right now. I actually did because I think you called in before on the Jets podcast, or maybe that wasn't you. Maybe that was someone else. but yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and share your stuff, and then yeah, I will definitely be checking out your show tomorrow. I'll be done with my wrestling podcast actually before you start your show, so that'll be nice. Um, yeah, so yeah, man. Thank you for calling in. Yeah, because college sports is something I don't even get to usually think about in my main lineups as much. But I'm happy you brought up college football today because I definitely am a big lover of college football, and I've been a little bit down on it this year because it just hasn't felt the same, you know. So right. Well, thank you so much. I can't wait to hear your show tomorrow, and I'll definitely be trying to call in myself. So yeah, you take care. Thank the caller. Like he said, find him, Blog Talk Radio, Enhanced Sports. I'm actually going to go ahead and try to put all that information in the live stream as well. Awesome caller. Yeah, anyone feel free to call in like anytime, man. I love talking sports. I love talking wrestling. Like I said, we're going to do the wrestling show tomorrow. But yeah, that was really fun. And yeah, as I said before, um, I going back to Jim Harbaugh for a second that we brought up because going now into the back into the NFL here, I am a huge proponent of him going back to the NFL for three reasons. Um, One, I think so. There are some interesting situations in the NFL, which I think Jim Harbaugh could be a huge help. The first team I think about is the Detroit Lions. One, you have an aging quarterback who's kind of out of his prime, but the defense is still very, very talented. The offensive weapons are still very, very talented, and they can kind of run the football. And they're a team that should be better than what it has been. And unfortunately, Matt Patricia did not help that team live up to his expectations, where I think Jim Harbaugh now makes the NFC North a very, very strong division if the Chicago Bears could ever get the quarterback situation right. Another team I think about when I think about Jim Harbaugh is the Los Angeles Chargers. Hmm. I know that probably interests some people. Why the Chargers? Well, young, really like Justin Herbert is better than I think anyone thought he would be. And I think even if you weren't a Justin Herbert fan of him coming out of Oregon, watching him this year, like yes, he will throw them into trouble, but you see the potential of like they're not going to lose a step as far as having an elite quarterback with the right coach. And I think that right coach could be Harbaugh. The defense is still very, very good. They've had some injuries. They also have some opt-outs this year. And really, it's just the Chargers kind of choked away some wins. The Chargers just choked away a ton of wins. I still believe in Anthony Lynn, but I do believe they will let him go. And that breaks my heart because I think he is still going to be a very good NFL coach. The team has not been the team it was supposed to be. And they for sure will let him go. So, and I think Jim Harbaugh would be perfect there. Another team that comes to mind, of course, is the Texans. I think the Texans, with as little draft capital as they have, and they are a team, like I said, I'm really interested to see their offseason because there's already been some rumblings that maybe they would consider trading J.J. Watt just to get some first round picks, just to get some more picks. Bill O'Brien kind of bled that organization drive some of its resources. Now they did get Deshaun Watson on that long-term deal, and that was key. But that deal is not guaranteed, I believe, until April. And I don't believe they're going. I know there was some stupid rumors that maybe they would trade him. And I mean, listen, if they trade him and JJ, you're just saying you're starting over. Thank you for checking in, Ezekiel. Yes, I actually talk boxing, but I talk about it with my wrestling podcast. I consider that more of the physical of the contact sports that I'll cover on on top of wrestling. So MMA, boxing. I also cover mixed martial arts in that one, other mixed martial arts and martial arts as well, like Taekwondo tournaments, which we haven't gotten a lot of them, and things of that nature on that podcast. I will say last week I actually was talking about the Floyd Mayweather Logan Paul possible fight in February. And I mean, listen, I said, like, good for the kid. He's going to get his bag, but he's going to get his butt handed to him. And Floyd Mayweather is not a power boxer, but he's going to knock that kid out. I'm actually planning on streaming that fight. I actually might do a live stream of that fight in February. Actually, what I'll do for you guys is I'll throw my Facebook in here. And yeah, feel free to go like the page. But yeah, I do cover boxing. I did not get the chance to see the fight from last weekend. I do have it on my Fight TV, and I will be covering that fight tomorrow. Unfortunately, sometimes my work schedule does not allow me to watch these fights on time. But I will be actually covering some of those fights from last weekend tomorrow on the wrestling podcast, where I also cover WWE, AEW, New Japan, things of that nature. Yeah, like I said, I am looking forward to actually talking more boxing tomorrow, because I want to get into the the Logan Paul Floyd Mayweather thing a bit more. Same thing. So it's Blog Talk Radio. .com. I'm putting it in the thing here. Jay's Take Radio. Tomorrow that show will be live at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. So if you're on the East Coast, it'll be a little closer to 4 o'clock. That'll run for about an hour and a half. Feel free to come on in. It'll be the same number you see up top. Feel free to come on in, call in. I'd love to talk with you. And actually, for those interested in that podcast tomorrow, I actually may have a guest on, my friend who's a big fan of wrestling and boxing. So actually, we are planning on covering some fights and some MMA stuff from, I believe, the name of the organization is eluding my brain right now, because I'm so wired for regular sports that are happening tomorrow night on the Fight TV app. So yeah, man, feel free to check that out. Check out the Facebook. Go ahead and like the Facebook, where I will actually be updating, because I will have a site coming out sometime after the 1st, and a brand new YouTube channel that will separate both the sports stuff and the wrestling stuff for people to tune into, because I'm actually going to start dropping videos on Tuesdays and Thursdays starting next year. So yeah, man, feel free to check in tomorrow for sure for the wrestling podcast and in the boxing podcast. Like as I said, we're going to be talking about that Logan Paul Floyd Mayweather thing for February, because my buddy does not like Logan Paul, and he is excited to kind of dig into him. So, yeah, man, feel free to join. So let me see here. Okay. Let me give it another shot for you, brother. So if it doesn't show up, and for those listening to the radio show, I also stream live on YouTube. Right now, it's just on my personal YouTube, youtube.com/JaceTake. So yeah, it's just Blogs Talk Radio /Jay's Take Radio. So it's blogstalkradio.com/Jay's Take Radio. I'll say that again. That's blogtalkradio.com/Jay's Take. So JAYSTAKE radio. So yeah, feel free to check out that link. And then the Facebook is the same thing, facebook.com/Jay's Take Radio. Also, on the Facebook, like I have a lot of people to do, feel free to drop some memes if you want, man. Drop me a line, drop me a question, drop some memes. I love it. I love it. Like I said, this is kind of a big fun thing that I like to do, but I'm also very serious about it. And yeah, feel free to drop on in. I hope you don't mind if I call you Zeke. So yeah, feel free to go ahead and drop in on those. And like I said, like the page, find the radio show. Once again, facebook.com/Jay's Take Radio. And the radio show is on blogtalkradio.com/Jay's Take Radio. blogstalkradio.com/Jay's Take Radio. So yeah, I was kind of getting into Jim Harbaugh's teams that he should maybe consider. The last one was the Chargers. And like I said, I think it would work because he's going to hire a heck of a defensive coordinator, and for sure he's going to make sure that Justin Herbert takes off. And then the other two teams I think that would work very well is the Atlanta Falcons. Matt Ryan is still in his prime, but once again, it's almost like the Detroit Lions situation. He can get a young quarterback to groom underneath Matt Ryan, and the defense really ain't that bad. And of course, they still have Julio, they still have Calvin Ridley, and then the last team that's kind of on my radio, my radar for Jim Harbaugh is, it's going to sound crazy, but it's the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, I got to let Eagle fans know this, man. Either your head coach or your quarterback or both will be gone after this year. I've watched how that owner and Jeffrey Lurie and Howie have run that organization. That organization isn't because of a lack of talent, not even close because of a lack of talent. The struggles they have had, it is bad coaching, and the quarterback play has been questionable. But my whole thing about Carson Wentz was always he probably should have been benched by week 5 or 6 with all the struggles he had going on. Because unfortunately, unless someone is willing to take on that whole contract in a trade, like, because Jalen Hurts is playing okay right now, and if they win the rest of their games with Jalen Hurts because he gives them a spark, okay, I get it. Maybe you want to go into next season with Jalen Hurts as a starter. I'm not hating on that. But that contract is so basically to cut him kills at least 30. I think it's 35%, especially since the cap is going to drop next year. It's going to kill like 35% of your cap. So you can't just cut Carson Wentz. You can trade him. You can trade him and hope that whoever trades him will take on the contract fully. Because if they're willing to take on the contract fully, then you're out of dead money hell. I forget the number, but I believe so, because I think the number, if they even attempt to cut him, is like $50 million in dead money. But if they trade him, I believe it's only 15 to 20 or something like that. That's not that bad, especially since a lot of those older players, their contracts will be up after this year as well. So they can compensate for the $15 million in dead money for a trade. But yeah, that between your head coach and your quarterback, either one of them will be gone in the offseason or both of them will be gone in the offseason. And we'll see if Jeffrey Lurie decides to move on from Howie Roseman, but I don't think he will, because like I said, I do not believe the Eagles' struggle has been because of a lack of talent. And unlike the Cowboys, their offensive line, it is getting older, but they've also drafted well as far as the young linemen. So Jason Peters got moved to guard. There's a young guy starting at the left tackle position. I believe the guy they drafted last year, and he's playing the position really well. So how he's still doing what he needs to do as a GM is scouting well and drafting well and getting free agents that can fit the team well. The coaching decisions, and by the way, I mean the whole coaching staff will probably it could be gone after this year. I think they got very stagnant. I think the Eagles got very stagnant after they won the Super Bowl. The coaching staff did, and I think they rested on their laurels because if not for a drop pass, Nick Foles would have got them back to another NFC Championship game the next year. And I know you Eagle fans are hard on the team, but I promise you that owner and that GM are much harder on the team than probably you are. and I'm just an outside bystander who will watch the team. I'm a Jet fan / Viking fan who will just kind of watch footballs, check out the offseason. And they're very consistent on trying to build a winner in Philly. But there's no doubt they're incredibly consistent on trying to win, get a winner in Philly. But the coach rested on his laurels, and clearly, Carson Wentz is just. He's probably been given too much of go at it, boy. He needed to be benched in week 6 or 7 to be just to be like, hey, bro, like you haven't been playing up to the standard that you're capable of playing. Remember, before his injury 2 years ago, I think it was 2018, when they won the Super Bowl, the dude was an MVP candidate, like lighting up the league, like looked special until his catastrophic ACL tear. Like he was phenomenal. And yeah, I figured it would take a year or two for him to bounce back from it. But not like this. Like you're talking about a guy who looks frazzled at times, who was looking frazzled at times when he was starting. And it's just like I said, that to me, when I've watched the Eagles, he's definitely been a part of the issue, and you can tell because Jalen Hurts, he's not a better quarterback than Carson Wentz. Let's first off, let's get that out the way. I also don't think he's a better captain than Carson Wentz. But he's going to play more free, and he's going to play within the offense, where I think Carson Wentz kind of started just freelancing a bit more, and it wasn't helpful. So, yeah, with the Eagles, like I said, either the coach will be gone or the quarterback will be gone and traded, or both will be gone in the offseason. And it could be the best for the Eagles franchise, in the long term, because it clearly just it's not working out with. And unfortunately, you cannot have him sitting on the bench making damn near $50 million. Like if you're going to keep him going into next year, you're going to keep Carson Wentz going into next year for the Eagles, then you're making him your starter. But then at that point, you might as well let the head coach go, because basically it felt like Dougie P waited until almost like the media said it was okay for him to bench Carson Wentz. You should have just made that call in week 7. And that's why, like I said, I think Jim Harbaugh would be a good fit there, especially if they kept Carson Wentz, because it wouldn't be that different than the situation he once walked into in San Francisco. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of get into my predictions for week 15. Last night was a really, really good game between the Chargers and the Raiders. Like I said, the Chargers are a really good football team. Anthony Lynn is probably going to get fired. I like Anthony Lynn as a head coach, but he's probably going to get fired. That team, once again, just blew a football game that they could have won. They blew a football game that they clearly could have won. And they're a good football team, but you can't only win 3 or 4 games and keep your job, unfortunately. He's been there 4 or 5 years, or 3 or 4 years, I'm sorry. And I think he's only made the playoffs once, and they got annihilated by the Patriots the last time they were in the playoffs. The Raiders pull off a win in overtime, get a 30-27 win. It will not mean much for the Raiders because they are not making the playoffs because they also dropped some ball games they shouldn't have. The one team that actually figured out the Chiefs dropped some ball games that they almost lost to my Jets because the defense has just not been good all year. It's been a bit better since they let go of Dennis Allen, but it just hasn't lived up to its potential, and they're not going to make the playoffs. And to me, that's a shame. That's also an indictment on John Gruden. Like you knew the defense has been struggling, and yeah, I know there really wasn't any offseason this year, but you knew this. Like you got to play better than that, and I feel bad for Raiders fans because that team should have made the playoffs, and now they're not. Now getting into the games for the rest of Week 15, there are 2 Saturday games this weekend. The Bills at the Broncos. The Bills should win this game. It's always tricky going into Mile High in December and just declaring wins. As Tom Brady will tell you, it is very hard to go up there in Denver and win cold weather games a mile high. But I think the Bills will get it done. The defense is very good. And Drew Lock will probably not be the quarterback next year for the Denver Broncos. He's been disappointing, and then he put the team in a really tough spot when all the quarterbacks had to get a COVID test because of something he did. They would not disclose what he did, or I've never seen what they disclosed that he did. And then they had to grab a kid off the practice squad who hadn't played quarterback in like 3 years since he played at Wake Forest. And they did okay, but you're supposed to be the face of the franchise. You cannot make those mistakes. So I have a feeling John Elway will move on from Drew Lock next year. And I think Vic Fangio will be on the hot seat because the defense, and they've had some major injuries, don't get me wrong, but the defense has also kind of struggled, even though they're very, very talented still. And they've also had some bad injuries, to be fair to them, and some opt-out of key players. But the Bills should get it done in that game. And then the other Saturday game is Panthers at Packers. Now, the Packers last week, because of the Vikings loss and the fact that they beat the Lions, clinched the NFC North and are currently the 1 seed. If they are not careful, they will lose this game. Now, C-Mac is not playing in this game. Rough year for him. Just a nagging injury he has not really been able to get over. I'm shocked the Panthers organization haven't just been like, you know what, we're not really going anywhere this year. We had a feeling we wouldn't, but we were hoping that it would go a bit better than this, and it has not. But if they are not careful, Teddy Bridgewater has beaten that Packers team. Now, the Vikings defense was better than the Panthers was back then, but his receivers are better than the Vikings receivers were back then. And Teddy Bridgewater is not afraid to go in Lambeau and win a game, especially with no cheeseheads in there. And while they have struggled to stop the run, they have also struggled. The Packers defense has struggled to stop the short passing game. Really, the big thing for any team against the Packers to do good pass rush, keep Aaron Rodgers off the field, keep that offense off the field. Because if that offense is off the field, they can't explode on you. We'll see about the pass rush. Brian Burns has been their best pass rusher, which is what you hope for the Panthers. But they've been a middling team, and they're either going to finish with 10 losses or 9. They're probably going to finish. I think they're going to probably finish a little worse than that. But the Panthers are on the come up. Do not get it wrong. Do not get it twisted. But I think Matt Rule will be looking to draft a quarterback. It's not that Teddy isn't capable. He also got hurt again this year. But yeah, the Packers better be careful. I'm going to pick the Packers to win this game, but the Packers better be careful because they can darn well lose this football game. Do not sleep on the Panthers just because they don't have C-Mac, baby. Also, they can run the football. And that's the second and last Saturday game. Going into next Sunday, Texans at Colts. Colts need to win this to kind of keep up in the AFC South with the Tennessee Titans. The Texans just got shellacked by the Bears last week. Like, they made Mitchell Trubisky look good again. That cannot happen. Like, that literally cannot happen, man. Like, ugly game for them. And like I was alluding to earlier, there has been some rumors that maybe the Texans will be looking to trade a J.J. Watt, maybe a Whitney Merciless, and just kind of rebuild the defense so they can kind of get some picks back for whatever new coach comes in there, new coach / GM comes in there. It wouldn't be the worst idea. Listen, you basically have Deshaun Watson locked up, guaranteed, starting in April, which is the beginning of the new football year. As far as this game goes, I'm going to pick the Colts, but the Texans have been known to beat these Colts and kind of and linger their plans into the dust. But I'm going to pick the Colts. Also, the Colts are at home, and the Colts are actually one of the few football teams that allow fans, and it actually does help the whole home field advantage thing. So I'm going to pick the Colts to win that game. Lions and Titans, it will be the Titans, but it will be a tough game for the Titans. I think it was Shannon Sharp that once said, a problem you could fix, but an issue lingers. And Derrick Henry is an issue. And the Lions, guess what, have struggled to stop the run. This is going to be a tough game for the Lions. They're not going to come out on top. And the Titans will win to keep their lead in the AFC South. But I actually do think it'll be a good game. It's not going to be, for lack of better words, a runaway. But the Titans will tighten up and they'll win this football game. Bears at Vikings. The Vikings have to win because their playoff hopes are now very, very slim. The games they have lost this year have been somewhat embarrassing if you're a Viking fan. You had a chance to beat the Titans earlier in the year, a game in which your offensive line just completely let go. They couldn't block the pass rush and got Kirk Cousins killed. Because Mike Zimmer has kind of figured out those young corners, and he just kind of put them in spots to succeed. Where they have a side of the field, between Jeff Gladney, Chris Boyd, and I believe the other second-round corner that they drafted. And he's actually got the back end got them figured out a little bit more. And they have played much, much better. They did not play the greatest game against the Bucs, but really that game came down to their kicking game and the fact that when he couldn't put up any points at all kicking the football, when you leave 10 points on the board, yes, the Buccaneers basically were able to put them away, and the pass rush got after them. And I actually felt bad for the Vikings last week because that's a horrible thing to have to go through. The Vikings, I'm gonna take the Vikings in this game because I believe they will find a way to get after Mitchell Trubisky, who's apparently only a decent quarterback in the sense that he's not a statue like Nick Foles, so the offense looks a little bit more fluid. And getting out of the pocket, he can throw the ball pretty decently. And yes, the Bears defense is still incredibly ferocious. Do not get it twisted. They are a championship caliber defense, but the offense still screams 2-14. So I'm going to take the Vikings at home. They need to win this game to even have a shot at being the 7th seed in the NFC, and they actually need some losses to happen. Up next, Seahawks in Washington. If the Seahawks are not careful, not only will they lose this game, they will get blown out. That defense in Washington is excellent. It's excellent. Now, the big thing for Washington will be the offense. They're going to have to run the football, but it is the Seahawks, so they should be able to run the football because they have to protect Dwayne Haskins. Now, remember, Dwayne Haskins was benched because Ron Rivera basically, he just kind of said, like, I don't think he was actually ever ready, and he still needs some work. they hadn't given up on him yet, but they had, he needed some work. And then Kyle Allen got hurt, and then Alex came back and had been really, really good. And now he got hurt again. So they need Dwayne to take this team home. I believe he's up for the challenge. I understood why he got a high grade coming out of Ohio State, even though he was a 1-year starter. It's time for him to start showing that. So I'm going to take the Washington team in this game to kind of get ready to try to run away with the NFC least. But I also wouldn't be shocked if the Seahawks won because they are the Seahawks. It is Russell Wilson, but that's a really excellent defense Washington has. It's been really excellent the last 6 weeks, and Russell has struggled. Now he looked great again against my Jets, but it is my Jets, and I will get to them very shortly here. Now, Patriots against Dolphins. I'm going to pick the Dolphins, and here's why. It's not that I think the Dolphins are a better team right now than the Patriots. And then it'll set up a very interesting scenario for the Jets in week 17, but for the Dolphins, Tua has come on and played very, very good football. And I know people weren't sure about the decision since Ryan Fitzpatrick was playing well, but as a Jet fan, I can tell you, and someone who watched him in Buffalo and with the Rams when they were in St. Louis, Ryan Fitzpatrick at some point always goes back to Ryan Fitztragic. He'll be Ryan Fitzmagic for a long time, but he goes right back to Ryan Fitztragic very quickly. Very, very quickly. So starting Tua was a smart decision. You got to see what the kids got. Plus, I found it interesting that the reason why they kind of did that was that the front office felt like they were not tied to Tua if he did not perform. I thought that was very interesting. I'm like, a lot of you guys are very high on these quarterbacks coming out for the 2021 draft, where I am still iffy on a lot of them, especially since we didn't get to see a lot of interconference play. And T-Law struggled against some teams this year in the ACC, including Wake Forest. So yeah, and Boston College exposed some stuff in his game I did not like seeing as a Jet fan. So, but yeah, the Dolphins are a very good football team. I told a ton of my friends last year who thought like, oh, the Dolphins still stink. Your Jets will recover. I'm like, no. Good head coach, great GM finally, great young GM, and the owner who has basically backed off and said, I'm going to let the football guys do football things. They've built a really excellent team down there, and they're still only a couple more pieces away from competing with the Bills as one of the top teams in the AFC, in teams that will go back and forth for the AFC East. Now that Tom Brady is out of New England. So the Dolphins should win. I would say by like 10 plus points, but we'll see. The Patriots defense is okay. I feel for Cam Newton. Like basically Tom Brady, like I said, I've never been the biggest Tom Brady fan, but one thing Tom Brady is not when it comes to football, and not when he gets himself into trouble, when the organization got themselves into trouble in the past, is Tom Brady is not a liar when it comes to on the football field. And neither is his non-English speaking wife. Sorry, I had to make that joke. Yeah, they have no weapons in New England. None. I know he drafted the 2 tight ends, but they haven't even figured out how to use them. Devin Asiasi was actually a really good player at UCLA. He was a really, really good player. Kind of more of a Greg Olsen type, decent run blocker, but just found ways to get open in the passing game. And they just have not used him very well. And Bill Belichick is still one of the best coaches of all time, but Dolphins defense is better than their offensive struggles, so the Dolphins should get that dub. Um, Jaguars at Ravens. Ravens should win this running away. One, they're still trying to get into the playoffs. And two, the Jaguars, while they have a decent defense, so the game will be close. And Minshew Mania is back for its last 3 weeks. So the Jet fans that are hopeful for T-Law are so happy. But Minshew did not play well after their first win of the year. So there's a reason they are also in the T-Law sweepstakes. And if the Jets and the Jaguars finish with the same record, that the Jaguars would win the first pick based off of strength of opponent and who they beat, who they lost to. They just lost to everybody, and the team at times has just quit on that head coach. And Doug Marrone's going to be gone after this year, so Ravens should win that one. I'm not going to pick a large margin for that one. I'll go 13, 2 touchdowns, 2 solid touchdowns, but I wouldn't be shocked if they beat them by like 30. That game's going to get out of hand by the third quarter. I promise you. Buccaneers at Falcons. Buccaneers, once again, need this game to try to clinch a playoff spot. They're not going to win the NFC South, I don't think. And they've just been disappointed. I kind of said a lot last week about how Bruce Arians should be ashamed of himself because, yes, you have Tom Brady. Yes, Tom has struggled in your offense. That's why you have a decent running game. That line's not bad. You could help your defense as well if you ran the football more. Because Tom Brady is still a killer quarterback at play action. Like his ego has gotten in the way of that team being probably at this juncture like 12-1 maybe, because his ego has gotten in the way. If they don't go to the Super Bowl, I would not be shocked if the Glazer family just decided to just let Bruce go. Like your ego has been too large, and it's just like, what have you done, Bruce? Like, what have you actually done? What have you actually won, I should say? So let me finish wrapping this up. 49ers at Cowboys. 49ers will probably win this game. Which will be great because then I don't actually have to keep hearing Cowboy fans who actually still have hope that maybe their team might win this division. It's over for you. It's over for you. Eagles at Cardinals. I think Cardinals will have another bounce back win here. And we'll get the win. Jets at Rams. It's going to be the Rams. For those who are listening on talk radio, when the show's over, come Chiefs and Saints. I'm actually going to take the Saints here, and it's only because of the defense. After what I saw Miami do, the Saints defense, especially at home, is very capable of replicating that. So, Browns at Giants. The Browns, I think, will get a win and try to keep their high seed hope alive. They could catch up to the Steelers at this juncture, but we'll see. But I do think on Monday Night Football, the Steelers will get a bounce back win against the Bengals, who have just looked awful since Joe Mixon and Joe Burrow got hurt. Once again, guys, thank you for listening to the radio show. I'm still going to stay on the YouTube channel probably for another at least 20 minutes. So just go over to youtube.com/JaceTake. Enjoy me there. Thank you to the caller. Like he said, you can find him on his radio show tomorrow night, Enhanced Radio. Thank you for listening. Love you. Bye.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
So, the Jets, my Jets. So there is a theory that I believe in why part of me is like we actually might not even get T-Law, so we're going to be put in an even worse position than we've already been in. As anyone knows, Bill Belichick hates the Jets. And at this juncture, the Patriots have little to no shot of making the playoffs. there is a chance because they play week 17. Now, the Jets are actually very capable of beating the Dolphins after this week. I don't see how we beat the Rams. I just, I was one of the few people who thought we could beat the Raiders because I believe that if Dawa Loggins was calling the plays, that Sam would look better, the offense would look better, and the defense would do just enough that we would win the game. And then, of course, there was the failed Blitz Mary, and Henry Ruggs ran into the end zone. And I don't like that we fired our defensive coordinator, who should have also been forced to live the rest of this horrible season out because he has also not been very helpful. Now, I would have preferred if he had been the head coach starting 2 years ago, but I was not happy that he got fired because he should have been forced as well to sit the stinking season out with us because he has also been a part of the issue because he also has not put his defensive players in the best positions at times to succeed. Adam Gase is literally a guy who should never get an NFL head coaching job ever again. He shouldn't have got the job in the first place. Now, I am sometimes on different Jet blogs, and I was telling people when he got hired, I'm like, this is going to go horrible for Sam. In my gut, I had a feeling. I'm like, this kid's so talented, and at the time he was only like 21, 22, something like that, because he'll only be 23 this year. I'm like, this is horrible. This is horrible. Like, why would Christopher Johnson listen to anything Peyton Manning has to say? Peyton Manning is not a fan of the Jets organization either. So why would you listen? Clown Christopher Johnson. And then this season started. Now, last season, of course, ended with us winning, I think, 6 or 7 out of our last 10 games or something like that. I think something like that because I think we finished 7-9. And yes, we beat bad teams, but you were like, okay, Sam looks better, even though the offense doesn't look great. Sam looks better at making his own decisions and finding guys like Robbie Anderson, who then we inexplicably allowed to just walk to the Panthers for probably $2 or $3 million more a year than what they originally offered him. They could have just went up because he had a rapport with Sam. I digress. And a head coach that we should have never kept in the first place because I'm not sure if people remember how things ended in Miami, but they ended very, very horribly. Franchise-type players left Miami because they didn't like playing for that head coach. They didn't like playing for that head coach. And now we sit in a situation where we have a very excellent shot at going 0-16. I used to feel bad for fans of the franchises like the Lions and Browns who have already achieved this because you should not have to sit there and watch your team go 0-16. When the Colts basically tanked and fake tanked because not only did they put Peyton Manning on the shelf that year, but they kind of started trading away some of their better players just so they can get Andrew Luck, which, by the way, there's a reason I'm bringing this up, and I think you'll catch on to it. It made a lot of sense. Andrew Luck actually was that kind of quarterback coming out of college where you're like, dude, he can turn a franchise around his rookie year, which, by the way, they did. They went 10-6. But I always thought, yeah, but the front office is still a little bit incompetent, and they're not going to draft a line around him. They're going to try to go get receivers and things of that nature first, but they should get a line around this kid right away to protect him. Well, guess what happened last year? Because not only did he basically lose his confidence, but I think he got the love of football beaten out of him. Andrew Luck retired at an incredibly young age after being very successful early on in his career as the quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts. coming into this year, I said, okay, well, I'm going to give Joe Douglas some credit. He did try to go get. I think Connor McGovern is a very decent average starting center. I had a lot of hope for Mekhi Becton, and I liked Cameron Clark coming out of Charlotte. Now, Cameron Clark has not actually played this year, and I was always my worry because he's also a fourth rounder, and Adam Gase likes to do things his own way. But I was hopeful because I was thinking, okay, with Le'Veon, if Adam Gase is any kind of smart football coach, he'll know this year to help Sam, to help the team, we need to probably run the football better. I need to be, because that was a big issue coming off of last year with Le'Veon Bell. Okay, and he said it. I talked to Le'Veon. Our relationship is better, and we plan on running the football more. And I said, you know what? I would think probably talking to his new GM, he probably told him, hey, I'm going to get some linemen here who are decent run blockers. George Fant. I don't know why we signed Greg Van Rotten, but Alex Lewis is a very decent run blocker. So okay, let's find the zone running scheme. Do because Sam kind of proved last year that he was starting to pick up play action pretty well. So let's keep if we could keep our sorry, if we could keep Anderson and run the football, maybe we could be an 8-8 football team. I still want to fire this coach, but maybe we can be an 8-8 football team. But if we finish something like 6-10, but Sam and the offense looked good and the defense was coming along, but we finished 6-10, Woody will probably be back because Trump may not win his reelection, and we can get rid of Adam Gase, get a coach in there that can coach these guys up to their potential. Okay, and I like the draft Douglas had. And it's starting to show because they've been playing more. It's starting to show these players are actually capable young players. But Kai Becton might be a rookie Pro Bowler. The kid we drafted back in 2017, the D lineman, Quentin Williams is really starting to come along. And actually, on the front three, we actually have drafted well there. On top of the fact that we have Steve McClendon, and I was actually hopeful because of the motor Zuninga had coming out of Florida that Greg Williams would love Zuninga and just start him right away. Like, we're just going to let this kid kind of learn on the fly. Because, like I said, then my thoughts were, listen, if the team still goes 6-10, that's going to be coaching as far as important moments go. Because Adam Gase is a terrible head coach, he's going to screw that up, and we'll lose some games we shouldn't have lost. Win probably one game we shouldn't win, and if we finish 6-10, we still get to fire this clown of a coach, but the GM will get an actual coach in here. Woody will be back, and we can really, we'll pick up the option on Sam, and then we'll really build this team around Sam, and then the rookie head coach going into next year, hopefully a good coach, a Jim Harbaugh. I was thinking the dude maybe out of Oklahoma, maybe if he finally wants to come out of college to coach, Lincoln Riley. A ton of names, not Bill Cowher, which ended up popping up, but a ton of names, right? Because I thought we should have hired Mike McCarthy to give him a chance to work with a young quarterback because I thought maybe it was possible, right? Okay. So right off the bat, a ton of the young guys got hurt. Bryce Hall was already coming off injury from Virginia, so I knew he probably wasn't going to be back until midseason anyway. But I'm like, what a steal for a 5th round corner. I mean, this guy has 1st round talent, and we got him in the 5th round. That's a steal. I'll take that. And then the young safety to attempt to replace Jamal Adams, which I didn't have a problem with because Ashton Davis is a better cover guy, has the potential to be an elite cover guy and much better than Jamal Adams. By the way, congratulations, Seahawks fans. You're seeing that now. So that's not what happened. He didn't want to start the rookie running backs. They didn't even really want to play most of the young guys. Decided he is going to run the football more, but he's going to do it with almost 40-year-old Frank Gore. Now, I'm not hating on Frank Gore. Frank Gore is a Hall of Famer. Like, Frank Gore has been great. And I do like Frank Gore. But Frank Gore is not the future of your team. These young guys are. And he did not want to play these young guys. I think when Woody comes back, because also the value of Sam has just dropped. I'm telling you guys, he's a much better quarterback than you think. I mean, really, before that game got out of hand in the second half against the Seahawks, because I was listening at work and then came home and actually rewatched it. The first half, he played okay. You know, he wasn't putting the ball in harm's way, you know, for the most part. He was trying to make some plays down the field that just weren't working. But, you know, you could tell there's been growth, but there's definitely been some regression as well. And then the second half just got away because the defense just looked atrocious without Greg Williams, which I figured it would. And that's another reason why I wouldn't have even fired him, especially since you didn't fire Adam Gase after starting 0-7. Anyway, which I believe is Christopher Johnson. It's been a clown show. It's been an absolute clown show. We should have probably the same record, if not a little better, than the Giants at this juncture, because some of those young players that we needed to step up did. Denzel Mills came in and has been proving his talent. He's actually probably a better prospect than Robbie Anderson, and he's got a real shot at being a number one wide receiver. And he even did an interview recently where he was talking about how he wants to be a better route runner. This coach doesn't even want to use him in the proper things. So he is literally the worst head coach I've ever seen. Now, I was too young at the time to remember Rich Kotite at the time. Now, I went back and kind of resurfaced a lot of it. And it's like, oh yeah, the Rich Kotite years were horrible. We're horrible. But Adam Gase single-handedly might have ruined a really good young quarterback. Now, I don't think he did. I think, and this is another reason why I think the offseason will be interesting, because wherever Sam goes, even if he's behind a guy like Matt Ryan, or, you know, he goes to the 49ers, excuse me, like I've predicted in the past, I think he will have a major bounce back year next year with a competent guy who can work with his strengths and continue to work on his weaknesses. Because Adam Gase damn sure ain't that guy. And I know some people were like, well, it's funny how Joe Flacco looks better than Sam Darnold does in the offense. Joe Flacco looked better when Dowell Loggins was calling the plays. Sam looked better when Loggins was calling the plays. And I don't even think Loggins is a good offensive coordinator. But he's better than the clown a head coach. Oh. So if you're a fan of the Jaguars, I want you to understand your team is a head coach and a quarterback and maybe a couple of O-linemen and then a safety away from recompeting. Like, it's not even that far away. And Shad Khan is a very capable owner. And I actually like the GM still because the talent is clearly there. It's just the players no longer believe in that coach. He'll be gone. It's not a big deal. For the Texans, it's one of those things with the right coach. If you're forced to trade guys like Whitney Merciless and J.J. Watt away to kind of start building younger around Deshaun Watson, then hell, even next year they would have a chance to at least win the AFC South and get back to the playoffs with the right coach. And I'll go to the Lions. I'll even go to the Lions. A good head coach. You're a good head coach. in a decent draft away from even maybe not only making the NFC North more competitive, but making it one of the two toughest divisions of football. Because really, that division isn't that far away. The Packers ended up running away with it this year, but that's because of a litany of issues with the other teams. But they're very, or I should say, not even issues, problems, because they're fixable problems when it comes to those other teams. The Jets, I feel, even if we got T-Law, are still 2 years away from even competing for a playoff spot. Because what free agent would want to come to the Jets at this juncture? What free agent? Even with the money thrown at him, they saw what happened to Le'Veon. He wasn't even used properly when he was here. If he was used properly and he was failing, okay. Like, if he was used right in the run, in the passing game, getting passes out the backfield, split out in the slot, and he was still struggling, okay. But that's not what happened here. That's not what happened in New York at all. And so I do not. First off, I've watched T-Law this year, and I'm not sure he's actually better than Justin Fields. I'm not sure if he's actually better than the kid from North Dakota. Like, all of a sudden, the talent around him dwindled just a little bit, and he doesn't look as far away of a talent as those guys are. Maybe Justin Fields will be better with a different head coach than T-Law in the long run. Hell, to be honest, as a Jet fan, I'd rather have Carson Wentz. That sounds insane, doesn't it? I'd rather we traded Sam to see if we can get a second round pick from the 49ers, who I'm at this juncture so sure that they're going to let Jimmy G go. That I think it's a moot point that Jimmy G is going to end up back in New England. That if we can get a second rounder for Sam to go to San Fran, that would actually be perfect. One, he'd be back home. Two, Kyle doesn't actually have to draft a quarterback. He can work with a guy who's already started in the league and probably fits in his system perfectly. And if the Eagles would rather go with Jalen Hurts, why shouldn't the Jets want to take Carson Wentz off their hands? We have 2 first-round picks this year. Give them the lower one. Here, take this one. We'll take Carson Wentz. If I get a decent head coach, I know that guy can be elite again, Carson Wentz. It wouldn't take nothing. Like, if we hired a Jim Harbaugh and we traded for Carson Wentz, turnaround, it's like that. But yeah, Adam Gase should never get another head coaching job ever again. Now, I have a little faith in one New York sports team before I get off of the stream here, and that is my New York Knicks. What I've seen in the preseason from them has been a little bit more hopeful. RJ looks really good right now. He seems to be seeing the floor a bit better. He's clearly been working on trying to pass the ball to his guys. I like the big men we got. So when the NFL season is over, I will be watching the Knicks more and hope that I can see a New York team make some progress. Not name the Nets or the Giants or the Bills. I mean, in baseball, I don't have to worry about it because the Mets will never make more progress than the Yankees. But it's just, man, bro, like this has been hard this year. The year's already been hard, and then watching the Jets, it's just like you almost don't even want to get up to watch a game. Or in my case, like go to work and listen to the game. Like I don't. Like most of the time, I don't even want to listen to the Jet games anymore. Like it just because they just sound so horrible to me when I'm listening to them, and I'm just like, this coach is not that Adam Gase is not capable of turning dog poop into trash. Like he's so incompetent. and should never get another NFL head coaching job ever again. Ever again. Oh, I got through that without yelling. I'm shocked. Oh, it's been horrible watching the Jets, man. It's been god awful. Well, first off, thank you everyone who joined the radio show. Thank you everyone who joined the live stream. I will be doing this again tomorrow, 3 o'clock. Once again, run for about an hour and a half. Tomorrow will be mostly things like boxing and wrestling, so feel free to tune in for that. Also going to be talking Floyd Mayweather and Logan Paul tomorrow. So listen, man, if you're into that, come join. Come find me on blogtalkradio.com/Jay's Take Radio. Once again, that is blogtalkradio.com/Jay's Take Radio. You can also find my Facebook page, facebook.com/Jay's Take Radio. That again is facebook.com/Jay's Take Radio. Or feel free to find me on Twitter. Come follow me on Twitter. I tweet all the time. Jay Sto is awesome. So it's pretty cocky. I didn't mean to do that. I originally made the Twitter when I was like 18. But Jay Sto is awesome. J, it's all small case letter. JSTOWE is awesome. Feel free to come follow me on Twitter. We'll be back tomorrow doing this. Thank you for checking me out. Much love to you. Stay safe. Stay warm. Hug a loved one. See you tomorrow.